You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie, and I'm proud of the life I have, surrounded by military and aware just how big the world really is. I have a unique perspective on life and the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View.
The following episode may contain some material that might not be suitable for younger audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Yes, friends, this is Jessie, and yes, I miss you when we're not talking. Now, I do have a guest tonight, but I do want to warn you, this episode is directly about terrorism, the Muslim takeover of the world, and experiences on 9/11. There are some people that may choose not to listen to this episode, and for that, I understand. And as always, you can join me in the chat room over at KLRNRadio.com/chat, and you can hit me up on Twitter. Now, my wonderful guest, Mike Velarde. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Oh, great, Jesse. How are you?
Fantabulous. Now, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was a Treasury agent for 22 years, retired in 2010, and I was a 9/11 responder. I was sent right after 9/11. I was sent to the dumps to look for body parts. The trucks would bring the debris over to Staten Island, and my job was to sort through it and see if we could find any human remains, and then we would try to identify them with DNA, which we did. We actually found somebody's thigh, and shortly after that I got pretty sick, and went on the Joint Terrorism Task Force shortly after that, was on the El Dorado Drug Task Force for a while, worked organized crime. I mean, I had a very diverse career in law enforcement before I retired in 2010.
It definitely does sound fascinating. Now, you were telling me before we started the show that you were originally supposed to be in New York City on 9/11, and much like myself, a twist of fate stopped you from being there.
Yeah, and you know what was funny, and I didn't tell you this before, but I'll tell you now. In 1993, I was at the World Trade Center before the bomb went off 2 hours before that happened. And I was on the LIE going home when the bomb actually went off. So twice I missed being there by very slim odds. So
that's amazing. So
if
now,
if there hadn't been an NYPD arrest, the captain had called me and told me not to come in because they were doing an arrest early in the morning, and asked me if I can come next week instead, because like I said, I was working organized crime at the time, and had that not happened, I would have been there.
That is amazing. And you and I were both trying to talk about how to describe the smell that was at the pit and that was at the dump and all that, where you were sifting and searching for remains. And it is not a describable thing, but it's one of those things. Once you've smelled it, you'll never forget it.
Terrific. No, I got so sick after that. I was out for a couple of days. It was horrible. They gave us gas. They gave us masks to protect our nose and stuff. It wasn't enough. I mean, you had the smoldering of the steel and everything that was burnt still smoldering when they brought it over to the dump. It was horrible. It was horrible. Not to mention with all the other garbage that's there, and it was just
horrific.
It was horrible. It was horrific. Yeah, it's one of those days I'll never forget. Never forget.
9/11 is a date that is trapped in infamy. I mean, in my mind, it's right up there with Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a little inside information, too, about 9/11. Not too many people know.
And what would that be?
When Bill Clinton was elected his second time, he put somebody in charge of the FAA, and they changed the rules on federal agents carrying firearms on the planes. So I remember my boss called us all in and said, listen, if you want to take your gun on the plane from now on, you have to go through a list of procedures. You have to have a reason. You have to either have a prisoner, or you have to have, some sort of authority. Otherwise, no guns on planes. I don't believe for a second that they would have planned this attack unless they knew that policy was in place.
Well, I can tell you as a concealed carry permit holder that I tend to drive more than fly because I can take my firearm.
Right. Well, after 9/11, President Bush came out and said any federal law enforcement officer is to take their gun any place he goes, even if he's flying for personal business. And after that, we all got air marshal training. And everything, went the opposite way. And then, of course, H.R. 218 came out. H.R. 218 is the law that allows federal agents to carry their firearms in any state, as long as they qualify once a year. They get a qualification card. That with a valid ID allows them to carry their weapon any place. And that's been in effect now since 2001.
Now, there's actually a similar bill for civilians, but it doesn't require the qualification once a year, but it's a 50-state reciprocity that the House has passed.
Right.
But the Senate hasn't, and I don't even think the Senate's planning on bringing it up from what I can tell. That would actually allow, my concealed carry permit from my home state to be valid as a visitor in the other 49 states. And
you're going to run.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you're going to run into problems with the liberal states. So, for example, New York City, when Commissioner Kelly was there, he didn't want to honor H.R. 218. So they actually arrested a federal agent who was carrying on, under H.R. 218. He sued the city and won a $5 million judgment. And then, of course, they had to change the policy because it's federal law. So you can't arrest somebody
right.
if they're federal. So some of these municipalities in these super liberal states, California, New York City, where they don't want to honor the law. But if they don't, of course, they're going to lose civilly in a huge way because you can't arrest somebody who has the authority to carry under federal law. So if you're qualified and you have the qualification card and you have bona fide credentials, you're legal in any state, and there's really nothing they can do. And if they do, you have the civil process.
Exactly. And I assume that as a federal employee, your boss wouldn't come down on you and therefore put your job in jeopardy if you got arrested for following federal law.
Well, that's separate, because if you are on the job, your credentials allow you to carry, and there's no issue with that. It's when you retire, and then you have to qualify under H.R. 218 because you're not on the job anymore. That's what H.R. 218 is about. It's about retired law enforcement officers carrying their weapons.
Now, do you still qualify every year so that you can carry?
I qualify twice a year usually. I'm going to go back up to New York and I'll qualify Again, I qualified in September. Anytime I go, I just shoot and get a new qualification card just to have it.
So you carry your firearm wherever you go?
Yes, and I have for about 30 years.
Well, as a concealed carry permit holder, I thank you, because I've actually started a segment on my show, and it's mostly geared towards civilians with concealed carry permits, that shows how people with concealed carry permits have helped solve issues, be it in their home, at a restaurant, or various other places. And I call it good guys with guns, because that doesn't make the news.
No, absolutely not. I remember one time I was in the mall, and I was in this store, and this guy is in the center of the mall, and he's absolutely going crazy on this girl, yelling at her, berating her, putting his finger in her chest. And, I went over to him. I said, "Excuse me, sir, you got a minute?" I said, "Come over here." So I showed him my badge, and I said, "You going to stop, or are you going to get arrested? What are you going to do?" Immediately he stopped, apologized, and calmed down the whole situation. But of course, when you show somebody a badge, they realize, well, what's behind that badge is usually a firearm. And that changes the whole dynamics of the entire situation.
Right. And unfortunately, civilians don't carry, civilians like myself, I don't have a badge. But I do take my concealed carry permit very seriously, to the point where I'm at the range about every 8 weeks, making sure that I can hit what I aim at, that I'm not going to have a stray shot. So I do take that very seriously, and I've actually practiced to the point with my holster, which I am a wheelchair user, which is something I have put out on the air multiple times. So I wear a shoulder holster, and I have practiced with that holster, and I can fire equally as well right-handed or left-handed, which is a skill very few have.
That's very true. Absolutely. It's much tougher out of the weekend, no question about it.
I actually have someone very special who's no longer with us. He died serving our country. My cousin, to thank for that. He was a United States Navy SEAL. And literally, he taught me how to shoot. He and his buddies taught me how to shoot. And the first time they put a handgun in my hand, then they said, "All right, do that with the left hand." Well, of course, at the age of 13, you don't think about it.
Right, exactly.
And so that's how I learned to be equally hazardous with either hand. Now, back to, but as law enforcement, quick question, then we'll get back to terrorism and the Muslim takeover of the world. But as law enforcement, do you have a problem with lawful concealed carry permit holders, those who have gone through the background
absolutely not.
checks? And
absolutely not. I think it's necessary. When I got married, I had my wife get her permit in New York. I encouraged my sons to get their permits. I think it's a great thing, because you have to have the ability to protect yourself.
And you are the second law enforcement official I've had on this show that has said they have zero issue with a lawful concealed carry permit holder.
Right.
So,
if you statistically look at shootings and crimes with guns, the percentage of those crimes being committed by lawful permit holders is very small.
It's
Most
minuscule.
gun crimes are committed by people that do not have permits, are felons, or have other issues, or get stolen guns, something along those lines.
I mean, those of us who have our permit value our permit, and we know that if we ever commit a crime with that firearm, our ability to keep and bear arms will be taken away by the courts. Right. And so the last thing I want to do is do anything that's going to endanger that.
Right, exactly.
Now,
exactly.
I've titled this episode "The Muslim Takeover of the World."
Yes, and let me get into that and explain. I talked about my career in law enforcement, but I also had a television show. What had happened was in 2006, I wrote a book called The Time That Is Coming, and that's about Bible prophecies of what's going to happen. And that book got me on television. And when I was on television, I had the opportunity to interview two former Muslim terrorists. One was Kamal Salim, who was the number 3 guy in the PLO, and he wrote the book The Blood of Lambs. And the other one was Zachariah Arnani, who had this distinction of killing over 230 people as a warrior for Islam.
PLO, you mean Palestine Liberation Organization?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, what group was the other person affiliated with?
He was in a Sunni during the Lebanese Civil War. He was in a Sunni Muslim terrorist organization that was targeting the Christians in Lebanon as well as the non-Sunni Muslims, the Shiite Muslims.
And that's one thing.
See, the Muslims...
Most people don't understand. The Muslims attack each other.
Yes, they do, absolutely. The Shiites and the Sunnis have had a rivalry since the death of Muhammad. And Iran is mostly Shiite, where Iraq and Saudi Arabia and most of those other countries are Sunni. And so they've been going back and forth about the lineage of Muhammad, and they disagree about who should be in charge of the religion, and that's where so they kill each other. I mean, I learned so much about Islam from these two people. I mean, Kamal in 1973 went to the king of Saudi Arabia, and he went to the king and he said, "Do you believe in the Quran?" And the king, of course, says, "Yes, we do believe in the Quran." And he says then, and he shows him in the Quran where it says that you have to either give men or money if you're the leader of a country to the cause of jihad. So they said to the king, they said, "So do you believe this?" And he said, "Yes, sure, we believe that." He says, "Then are you going to give us money or men?" And the king said, "Give me a week, let me think about it." A week later, they come back, and of course they told them that in the event that you do not give us men or money, we are going to sabotage every oil well in your kingdom because you are not fighting for Allah. And they decided to give money. And since 1973 have given over $3 billion to the cause of jihad. Now, Kamal went on to tell me that 9/11 was not just another day. 9/11 began what's called the third jihad. It is the final jihad before the caliphate comes. Now, if you go back about a year or two, the guy from ISIS was claiming to be the caliphate. Do you remember that?
Yes, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He's
al-Baghdadi, that's right.
Self-proclaimed leader of the caliphate.
Right, and Boko Haram gave their allegiance to him, but nobody else did, just Boko Haram.
Even the Taliban said he was too brutal and just kind of distanced themselves.
Yes, and then of course he ended up getting killed.
That's been debated, but supposedly.
Right. They believe he's dead. But we certainly haven't heard from him. And under the last year of Trump, I think they've lost 95% of their territory. But the point is, whoever that caliphate is, every Muslim has a duty to serve him and obey him, much like you would have to serve Hitler if you were a Nazi. You have to give your allegiance to the caliphate. That's why Baghdadi wanted the allegiance of all others, because he knows once they get it, they have to do whatever he says. Okay? So, Kamal explained to me that they picked 9/11 because the second jihad was stopped in Vienna in 1687 on September 10th. So September 11th, the next day, we begin the third jihad. They believe it's going to take 20 years from the coming of the caliphate. That puts it at 2021. That's their time line's not mine. Okay? Now, in order to take over the world for Islam, they've migrated to every country, and especially in Europe. If you notice, they've taken over large majorities in England, France, Italy, the Netherlands.
Just look at Hamtramck, Michigan.
Well, Michigan, of course, exactly, because they've come here to take over for they believe that the United States is the great Satan, and that Israel is the small Satan. And so their plan is to come and outpopulate the noble populations. So the average Muslim family has 8.4 children. The average American family has 1.6. After one generation, you got 64 people from the Muslims and 4 people from the Americans. It's over. Because when those 64 start populating, you have no chance to catch up. It's done. It's done. They knew that. It was no coincidence that no Muslim countries took in refugees from Syria. Why? Because they wanted those Muslims to go to Western countries so they could get in and outpopulate their population. And once they start doing that, they create what's called no-go zones, where non-Muslims can go. If you go to Michigan, you have them here in Michigan. As a matter of fact, if you call the EBT number for Michigan, they will give you your food stamps in Arabic. Okay?
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. I'll give you the number later on when we get off the show, and you can call it, and you could.
I will have to record that and play it on the air some night just to prove the point.
Absolutely, it's unbelievable to hear. 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, 3 for Arabia. Okay, so that way they don't have to know English. They can get food stamps using Arabic. It's called the number, follow the prompts. Okay, so we are within 3 years of their plan being completed. And if you look at Europe, every major city now in England has a Muslim mayor, including London.
I am aware of that.
Okay, it's no coincidence. Okay, now if you go to the Quran and you read the Quranic verses, for instance, the Quran says in chapter 8, verse 65, "O Prophet, exhort the believers to fight." In Quran, verse 9, verse 14 says, "Fight against them so that Allah will punish them by your hands and disgrace them and give you victory over them and heal the breast of a believing people."
That's scary.
Okay? Now, you got to understand the relationship in Islam that you have with Allah. You are a slave to Allah. There's no freedom. That's why Western culture is so opposed to Islam. Because in Western culture, we believe in freedom. The God of the Bible is different than the God of the Quran. You see, in the Quran, there's different names for Allah. One of the names for Allah is that He is the greatest deceiver of all. There is no greater deceiver than Allah.
Okay, how does he get the name?
It doesn't say that about Jesus in the Bible, okay?
How does he get the name the Great Deceiver? That fascinates me.
That is one of the scriptures in the Quran that describes him, who he is, and that's what Jesus called the devil, the father of lies. And when you look at the characteristics of Allah and the devil, they kind of match up. It's scary. I mean, you know, the Bible tells us that we shouldn't murder people, okay? But the Quran tells you that if you believe, you need to fight for Allah. It says in Quran 8:39, "And fight with them until there is no more finna," which means disorder of unbelief, "and religion shall only be for Allah." There's no freedom of religion. It's about domination. That's the goal. You know, Zach would often say, when he was alive, he'd say, "Why would you go to a country that's hostile to your beliefs, that hate you or opposed to what you believe in, why would you migrate there? Unless you want to take it over. What would be the purpose? Kamal told me on one of the shows that...
Of course, most Westerners will say, oh, they're coming, they want to come here because they want freedom.
Yes, but that's not part of their religion.
Now, I would say they want the freedom to practice their religion so they can take us over. But they don't. Yes. They certainly don't want to live by our rules. They don't want to assimilate.
No. Let me give you another Quranic verse. Quran 9, verse 14. Fight against them so that Allah will punish them by your hands and disgrace them and give you victory over them and heal the breasts of a believing people. Humiliation. Destruction.
So do you think, I mean, there was a period of time where I could have seen them truly taking over this country and not just based on population. But do you think that's something that is going to continue?
Let me give you some insight that Kamal had given me. Now, while I was with the service and on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, we stopped every single terrorist act after 9/11. So from 9/11 to the time George Bush left office, there was never any major terror attack in the United States again. As soon as Barack Obama got in office, the terrorist attacks started again. Fort Hood, right?
Right.
All those people shot and killed. Of course, I don't have to tell you about the nightclub in Orlando. California, San Bernardino. Oregon, where the guy was asking for who's a Christian and shooting them dead. Allah Akbar.
What about Oklahoma, where the meat packing plant?
Absolutely. That lady was getting beheaded. He was beheading the second woman before the deputy shot him. There's so many instances. Now, what changed? What changed was, this is what Kamal told me. I'm not sure I should repeat it on the air, but I will. One of the people that Kamal was a assassin for Muammar Gaddafi. He was like Muammar Gaddafi's adopted son. And his book, The Blood of Lambs, is a great read, by the way. Kamal Salim, The Blood of Lambs. And he talks about it in there. One of the people he did an assassination with, Gaddafi wanted an imam killed from Iran because Gaddafi was a Sunni and the Iranians are Shiites. So they bought out a plane and they got this guy on the plane and they got put his security on another plane. Anyway, Kamal and a couple other guys during the flight, they actually threw him out from the wheel wells of the plane from where the landing gear is. And the guy he did that assassination with, Obama put in Homeland Security. And Kamala told me he was still.
Are kidding me.
No. So they got to see what we do and how we do it.
I have a question. Does our government not track this kind of stuff? Are they just blind to it, or are they just afraid of calling it out fear of being labeled Islamophobic?
Well, listen, like I said, when Bush was in office, we stopped everything, okay? As soon as Obama got in, the policies changed. They changed what they put in the training manuals, okay? They don't believe in profiling. So instead of looking specifically for people that are Islamic males in the age from 20 to 40, they look at everybody, okay? So you're getting off the target. You're not focused on really where you should be, all right?
Okay, crazy question. You did a lot of organized crime trials and a lot of organized crime cases.
Yeah, well, I was developing them to be worked by yes.
Right, but what I'm saying is when you had to profile in order to figure out who your targets were, didn't you?
Profiling is a great law enforcement tool. Tremendous law enforcement tool.
Israel uses it to great effect.
It's a great tool. It only makes sense.
I mean, no offense, if you're looking for a radical Islamist terrorist, then why are you going to watch a bunch of Italians?
Right, exactly right. You're gonna be doing a surveillance on an 83-year-old Italian grandmother. Right, exactly. Right. You're wasting your time. Of course. But if your goal is not to stop it, but to allow it to happen, then you change those things.
Well, I have to tell you, and I have this, again, like I said, this is something I've said on the air previously. And then we'll have to take a commercial break because we've gone a little bit over, but that's okay. I called Obama turkey-in-chief, not commander-in-chief. And I'm talking farm-raised butterball turkey with no instincts. And we will get to your response to that and much more after we pay these radio station bills.
You're out here acting so tough, and now I'm calling your bluff. Black hoods and no faces. We'll take it out to the streets. That's where we can meet. You bring your sticks, I'll bring gauges. Just don't know what you've been asking for. This means war. Lock 'em up, knock 'em down. This means war.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
You're out here acting so tough, and now I'm calling your bluff. Black hoods and no faces. We'll take it out to the streets. That's where we can meet. You bring your sticks, I'll bring gauges. Just don't know what you've been asking for. This means war.
thank y'all for hanging in there with me while we paid those radio station bills. And for you careful and frequent listeners, yes, I cut the commercial break a wee bit short. Now, I do want to... Mike is still with us, and we've had... I mentioned some of the comments and questions in the chat rooms, and he's got some thoughts and things we've discussed. And we're... first of all, what was your reaction to my Trump comment of butterball in chief or turkey in chief?
You mean on Obama?
Uh-huh.
Well, listen, he was a Muslim, and he was doing what his God Allah would allow him to do, and that's take out the big Satan. And he put things in place. I mean, look at the amount of money we gave Iran. Look at how the policies changed and the effects they've had. Look at the number of Muslims that came over to this country during his administration. Look at how they stuffed the different... Look who was promoted in places like the FBI.
Exactly.
I mean, the four top people from Comey on down, McCabe, they're all very left-wing leaning people. Most law enforcement guys are right-wing. You know, they're law and order people. You know, but he, during the two terms he had, was able to stock these agencies, you know, promote those that would do his bidding, so to speak, and did a lot of harm to this country. And as far as Trump's ability to right the ship, that's going to depend on two things. That's going to depend on how the election goes in 2018 and 2020. In 2018, there are a total of 33 Senate seats up for re-election. Every 2 years, there's a third of the senators up for re-election.
Right.
Now, this year, there are 23 Democrats, 2 independents, and 8 Republicans seats. Those are the numbers. So basically, the 2 independents side with the Democrats. So the Republicans actually have a tremendous opportunity to increase their numbers in the Senate. And if they can get to 60, which might be tough, it might not be. I mean, there's 10 Senate Democrats that are running in Republican states won by Trump. So they could win all 10, of course. We'd be at that number. But that means that the Republicans will have to hold the 8 seats they have. And that's what it would take to move the Senate to the point where they can actually do whatever they want without a filibuster. Think about that. If they won all 10 of those, they'd have 61. They could pass whatever they need. If they were to lose the Senate, which would be very tough this year, because it basically would mean that the Democrats would have to win all their seats and the Republicans would have to lose 3 seats. So I don't think they're going to win all their seats. Like in Florida, a state like Florida, where Bill Nelson's running, he's a Democrat. He's going to run against the current governor, okay? And he's a popular governor, Governor Scott. So I think there's a very strong chance that the Republicans are going to flip that seat. So that's what it's going to depend upon if he's going to be able to get his agenda through. Now, I think the tax cut is very beneficial because everyone's going to have more money in their pocket. Everyone's going to go, my God, that was great. Now I have, extra money to spend on my family. I'm making an extra $100 a month or whatever it is. That's for me instead of going to the government.
Now, like I said, we don't normally discuss U.S. politics on this show, but it's so integral to this topic. Now, the questions from the chat room are along that line. One that just popped up is: are there agents of radical Islam who are senators and congressmen? And if so,
yes.
Do you know who they are?
Yeah, well, there is one of the heads of the Democratic Party is a very outgoing Muslim. I think he's the number 3 guy. He's one of the congressmen. His name escapes me right now, but they plan to possibly want to run him for president because he's very well spoken, kind of like an Obama type. So they're definitely, you're definitely seeing more and more that the Muslims are supporting the Democratic Party. If you go back to 2012, when they put on the platform,
would that
remember
be
they
Keith
put
Ellison?
God, they were going to put.
Would that be Keith Ellison?
Yeah, I think it's Keith Ellison. That's the guy, right? Exactly. Yep. And if you remember in 2012, where they wanted to put God in the platform and put in something about Jerusalem being the capital of Israel, and they showed on TV the Muslims, coming against it, and really the voice vote that they took probably was a no instead of a yes, but they went with it anyway because who wants to be the party that rejects God? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but you could see the strong Islamic influence, yeah, and you can see. Just look around. If you look around now and see there's so many more Muslims, there's so many more mosques. When you look at a mosque, you're going to notice something. You're going to see a crescent moon. Okay, they have a crescent moon on every mosque, and the reason for the crescent moon is this. Allah is the God of darkness. He's called the moon god, which should be very telling. Okay, their caliphate is pretty much the Antichrist of the Bible. And I wrote a book on it called The Time of His Coming, which is available at thetimeofhiscoming.com or on Amazon. And I explain in the book all the biblical prophecies and what the Quran says and how it's going to work. Because they're similar to some degree. Not exact, of course, but similar. They're not going to tell you in the Quran that Allah, the caliphate's the Antichrist. But although he'll do that work, he'll go out and he'll do like ISIS did, behead them, And Jesus talks about beheading, about the Christians being beheaded during the tribulation period. Jesus said they'll kill you and think they're doing God a service. That's what ISIS does. They'll kill you. They think they're doing God a service. They would rape women and think they're God a service. Look what they did in Syria and Iraq. Look at how they believe. Those are the good Muslims because they're the ones that are fulfilling the Quranic prophecies.
Right. Now, question, do you think there is any such thing as a moderate Muslim?
Well, here's what's interesting, and I'll give you Zach's answer on that. Zach would say, listen, could you be a Christian and not tithe? Of course, you're just not obeying all the precepts of Christianity. Same with being Muslim. Now, here you could believe in Allah but not kill, right? But the problem with that is
right? Okay, there. I thought I lost you for a second.
Let me give you this Quranic verse. It's in Quran, chapter 9, verse 38 and 39. O ye who believe, what is the matter with you, that when you are asked to go forth in the cause of Allah, ye cling heavily to the earth? Do you prefer the life of this world to the hereafter? But little is the comfort of this life as compared with the hereafter. Unless you go forth, he will punish you with a grievous penalty and put others in your place. It's a warning to those who refuse to fight that they will be punished with hell. That's the Quran. Quran 9, verse 41, 2 verses later, it says, go forth, light-armed and heavy-armed, and strive with your wealth and your lives in the way of Allah. That is best for you, if ye be new. You also see that the verse that follows, if there had been immediate gain in sight and the journey easy, they would all without doubt have followed thee, but the distance was long and weighed on them.
Now, I do have another question. Are there markers or indications of when these things are, and do you think we're going to be fighting in the street come 2021?
Again, that's going to depend on the elections. It's going to depend on the elections, because had Hillary got in, or the Democrats, they want to take all those Syrian refugees. They want to flood the place, because they know two things. All the people that come over are going to vote with the Democratic Party. I call them the Democratic Party, but they're all going to side with the Democrats, keep the Democrats in office. And what the Democrats really want is power. So it depends how the elections go. If the Republicans can win a 60-seat majority in the Senate and keep the House, they have a good shot to turn it around. And if Trump wins re-election in 2020, I think we will be able to stop a lot of the damage. But since there's so many already here, you're going to see fighting in the streets at some point in time. No question about it. It's just a question of when.
What do you think the average American should be on the lookout for?
Well, I think they need to understand Islam. I think they need to understand that Islam is a religion of domination. And I think that's important for them to understand, because they don't. Even most Christians don't understand Islam. I wouldn't have understood Islam if it wasn't for the fact that I've had the opportunity to interview with former terrorists and learn it from them, what they're taught and how they're taught. You see, and the Bible has a lot of prophecies about the time that's coming. You know, it talks about a kingdom in Daniel 7:23. Out of Europe, 10 nations are going to unify, just like the European Common Market. It's going to be downsized to 10. But this caliphate's going to take over those nations. Well, how's he going to do it? Because they have such large Islamic populations that when the caliphate actually comes, they have an obligation to serve him. Above anything else, they have to serve the caliphate. Because, again, you are a slave to Allah. That is your relationship. That is why
fascinating.
That is why when these people go, they purposely go killing people, because here's what they believe. They believe that when they kill the infidel, the blood of the infidel that they killed will cleanse the sins of them, the sins of them and their family members. And the more people you kill for Allah, the more of your family you can bring into his paradise. See, in Christianity, the blood of Christ paid for your sins. Christ died for you, okay? In Islam, you die for Allah and sacrifice for him. Totally different relationship.
Right. That
totally
is amazing. Mindset. I mean, I'm not trying to rush you, but we are down to about 6 minutes before we have to wrap it up. Do you think the GOP and the current administration know this is coming, and do you think they're going to cave, or do you think they're going to stand strong, assuming they get reelected?
Well, that's what it's going to depend on. It's going to depend on the numbers. I think you're going to see a house cleaning, because I think with the memo that's coming out tomorrow, I think you could see the bias in these agencies that we've never seen before in my lifetime. We've taken neutral agencies and made them partisan agencies, and this was all done really with the last administration. And I think there needs to be a purging, and I think at some point, this Russia investigation is definitely stopped Trump from doing a lot more, I think, because he has a cloud over him. You know what I'm saying? But I think people really need to understand, and this is why I wrote the book, The Time of His Coming, what's going to happen and why. Because, God, the book of Revelation is really pre-written history. And I try to make that easy for people to understand, because I'm unique, because not only did I write a book prior on Bible prophecy, but I had the opportunity to meet the terrorists, the people that were killing for Allah, and how they were brought up and what they believe, and the belief that they're taking to the rest of the world. I mean, a Saudi family that comes to the United States, if the woman wears the burqa, she gets an extra $1,000 a month. Why? To get Americans used to seeing it. You see,
wow.
When I asked Kamal, I said, Kamal, what's your plan to take over America? He says, well, we looked at America's weakness, and you know what we found? I said, no, Kamal, what did you find? He found diversity. They will give Islam equal footing with Christianity and Judaism. And because they give it equal footing, now what happens, you get it into the schools. Now they want halal foods. He says once we get to 2% of the population in any country, we start making demands on that country. So when you look at England, now they have Sharia courts. Now under Sharia law, a man can kill his wife. A man can kill his family.
Wow.
If you're a woman, you have half the rights of a man. In other words, a woman's testimony is worth half of a man's. That's Islamic law. If a woman disgraces her husband or dishonors him, he has the right to kill her. It's in the Quran that if she humiliates you or says something out of it, you are supposed to beat her. So she learns.
Now, are there other countries that, such as Russia or China or any other Western countries, Western or countries anywhere, that are facing this? Or
yes.
is this primarily
Russia has
an
a
American
large
problem?
Muslim population that immigrated. China, no. China basically outlaws all religions. So it's much tougher to get into China than it is to Russia. But Russia, because of the Ukraine, they have an Islamic population, and they're dealing with, remember in Russia they had that bombing at that train station there, so they have Islamic terrorists over there. Those guys that did the Boston Marathon bombing, they were from that part of the world over there. Right, Chechen, right. So Russia's going to be facing an issue. I mean, when you look at a map, look at a global map, I mean, you'll see this. Islam, over the last 20 years since 9/11, has spread throughout the world. It's virtually taken over Europe. South America, large populations in South America. America, Dearborn, taken over by Muslims. I mean, you get your food stamps now in Arabic.
All right, well, we are about out of time. And as I do with every guest, first of all, I'm going to ask right now, will you come back on? Because I know we didn't get to everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Great, because I've already got 2 or 3 listeners who have sent me messages going, he needs to come back. And I'm like,
okay,
I agree. Now, as I do with every guest, would you please give out any social media, website, whatever information you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah. Well, what I really like to share with the audience is my book. I think they'd find it enlightening. And that's at www.thetimeofhiscoming.com. And, of course, it's written by me, Michael Velarde. And it is a book that what I did was I created characters that go through the tribulation period when Islam will dominate the world. It's not a question of when. I mean, there's a verse in the Bible which talks about, when Satan is cast out of heaven, he comes to the earth to deceive the whole world. Well, he's going to be the caliphate. That's who he's going to be. And he's setting up for that right now. And that's what people need to understand. They need real clarity in the order and sequence of events and why they're going to happen and how they're going to happen. And that's why my book, The Time of His Coming, is so important for people to read. So if they would get that book at timeofhiscoming.com, they would really, really be an eye-opener for them.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell the listeners something I normally don't advertise in advance, but I have invited Michael Velarde to be a guest in the coffee shop so we can discuss his book for an hour. So that, I promises to be an outstanding episode. And as you just heard, he will be joining us again on POV. We will set it up at a later date. Now, I thank you very much for joining me. If you have any questions or comments you'd like me to pose to Mike in a future episode, please email me, jessespov@klrnradio.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Radio Host Jesse. Yes, that for those of you careful listeners, that is a little new, Radio Host Jesse. And Mike, I once again thank you for such an enlightening and informative episode.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about terrorism tonight. You have a great night.
You are welcome back anytime, and thank you.